Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis, giving you an insight of what we've got up ahead next week and comparing our analysis from last week as well. So we are going to start off with gold. So what we looked at last week was essentially an opportunity for a retest scenario on like a bigger macro picture. So we can see that pretty much towards the end of the week that started to happen. So we pretty much had one little push up through last week at the start of the week, so it had a nice rally, and now we're pretty much waiting for this pullback. So we can see at the end of the week or midweek we started to pull back. So my intention for this week is pretty much basically like this. We're probably gonna be expecting deeper retracements, and then effectively we're going to be trying to look for those buying positions to the upside. So I think that's pretty much where we're heading for this week. But long runs, I'm looking for price to eventually take out the highs. So if you scroll all the way back, this high over here, so we're talking 2100. So this could be a very good opportunity for long-term positions. But again, yeah, we could probably focus on a few more weeks of maybe or a few more days rather of sell-off before we could get that continuation. But either way, we're pretty much looking for a nice rally toward the upside, long-term speaking. So we are going to move on now with EU. So for EU, pretty much we were looking out for some buying opportunities ultimately. Let me just pull up my notes quickly. So essentially what I was curious to look for was to see if we could hold on to 1.11. We can see prices probably pushing lower now. We've just tapped into it. So I basically have two scenarios, and I'm quite liking this upside momentum that's followed on from this. So I'm probably just going to redraw this in a different way. Yeah, it's probably best to relook at some scenarios. So the first scenario that I'm potentially looking in for is some sort of retest, because we've tapped into that 1.11. Does this mean that we're probably going to find more price moves lower? So that's why I'm going to keep this in the back of my mind, and then from here we'll be expecting price to continue higher. But because I'm looking for this continued move up to the upside anyway, I am going to be looking for buying opportunities. So if we start to push up higher, we could wait for that retest and that continuation up. So it's pretty much going to be, we're going to be in this blend of, buying and selling pressure. But ultimately, I am trying to favor the bullish momentum. And I think that I've been waiting for this for a very long time in terms of price possibly reaching back into 1.23. I think I've mentioned that a few times in this video, but we're talking all the way back up, potentially up to these levels. So we have been suffering a lot of bearish pressure for a long time. So maybe this could be, that's why I'm anticipating those bullish momentums. But yeah, that's some sort of scenarios that I'm looking out for this week for EU. So hopefully it'll be interesting to see if we can get involved with some of these pairs and some of these positions. So looking at NZDUSD. So we finally, we've seen that price has broken into our downtrend. And yeah, so what I was looking out for this week for this pair is pretty much a pullback and then a potential rally to the upside. And then our second scenario is that we would get some sort of push up, and then we could probably look at a retest and then that continue momentum to the upside. So I am just going to be probably focusing on this and looking at 0.69 as a target. So if we expand that out, probably just make it a little bit smaller. So I'm not exactly too sure about this scenario for now. I'm more focusing on more bullish momentum. So maybe something like this. So maybe we'll get like a pullback and then continue rising pressure higher. So that's what I'm probably going to be looking out for. And pretty much I'm going to be trying to look at some bullish pressure options as long as we stay above 0.66 and 0.65 really. That's pretty much my kind of range where I'm trying to look at, but we'll see what kind of comes from this, and maybe there's going to be some choppy price action coming into next week due to the pace of how fast price was moving at the back end of last week. So that's just something that I'm keeping open to. So looking at AUDUSD, essentially it's going to be a similar story. I'm going to be waiting for a pullback. I'm trying to look for that buying pressure. So we see that that stepped in already very nicely. So now we're probably just going to anticipate, hopefully it can give us a chance to get back into this, and we can probably look for a pullback, and then maybe we can start to get involved with this. I'm liking this wick pressure to the upside, so that's why I'm keen to see if we can break these highs. So roughly at 0.73 is pretty much my target. I don't really want to go project too far of where I'm looking at, but so we're around 150 pips. So if this plays out, then this could be a nice scenario to look out for. Moving on to UJ. So if we take a look into this pair. So I had a lot of views on this pair, I think, judging by the different analysis, the different scenarios that I had came up with, and I'm pretty much still in this loop between buy and sell. My only thoughts about this for this week now in terms of bullish pressure is just because of how price had ended in the last week. We pretty much saw price rally towards the upside. So what I'm going to be looking for is to use this level at 144.5 and see if we can hold this level, because I think if we can stay above this, just picking apart from this logically, if we start to find some rejection from this and we stay above this, there could be an intention for price to reach into 117. So that's something that I'm looking out for. And again, if we do get into this area, we're going to be watching out for some sell-off opportunities, but we don't have to consider that this week, I guess. And then the other scenario is, well, if we break 114.5, what we're going to do. And that's probably where I'll probably look at some sell-off opportunities into the downside at 113. That's where this scenario comes into play. So hopefully that's not too confusing, but that's what I'm going to go with for UJ next week. So CAD JPY, so what I'm looking out for this week is, I don't know why I pressed that. So what I'm going to be looking out for this week is a sell-off momentum to the downside. We can see price had picked up through the week and sold off. That's still one opportunity, and it's pretty much tapped into the 89.5. So that's pretty much a good level to look into. What I'm going to be keen to look out for now, because we've tapped into 89.5, is to see if we can continue to push lower, but I really doubt that. And that's really based on this upside pressure, because there could be more downside opportunities into 88. But because of this strength that's coming in, there could be a possibility that we could push it a lot higher and break that 92 barrier. So I'm just keeping that in the back of my mind through the week and just watching price action really. So I'm just going to keep these two scenarios play. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we could arise from this in the long run. But if I was to state a direction, I would be looking for sells. My only consideration to the upside is just because of the strength that's come into play. So if we take a look at the RSI, maybe there's something here. There was not too much divergence, but there is a macro divergence there, so that's why there's some possibility that we could be pushing up higher. So again, we'll have to keep that in consideration whilst trading CJ. So yeah, moving on to now EURJPY. So for this, I'm waiting for pretty much an upside move. I think we was anticipating that last week, but it fell a little deeper than we expected. But as long as we've stayed above 127.5, I think we could still probably look at some buying options. So we could probably anticipate some pullbacks within the week, and then hopefully it could continue to rally to the upside. So that's one event that we could look into. The other scenario that I'm keeping in mind is that if we go above, into this range here and we see that rally, there could be a sell-off pressure that comes into play. So I'm going to be waiting for price to come into 131.5, 131, and pretty much review price and see if it rejects off anything. If we see any candles, momentum kicking in, that's just going to be some sort of foresight warning. But for this, I'm not entirely too sure. Probably the best way to go for this is probably to hedge your way to the upside and to the downside, and see which one kind of plays out in the long run. So AUDJPY, so for this, what I'm looking out for is price to push up higher into 84. I think I spoke about last week, but roughly around here. So yeah, I was expecting a deeper pullback, a lot more within this range, but as you can see, we've had some nice momentum kicking in, so I think it's fair that we could be just waiting for another pullback if we're lucky enough, and then hopefully we could probably get into that 84 range, see if we can continue this bullish rise. And yeah, I don't really want to go too far forward, but I think we could be looking at some sell-off positions to the downside that could be major. So this would be very short-term lived for myself. I'm just considering what we could expect to the upside, so we just need to review what's going to happen at 84. The 84 level, we could expect some huge turnaround, so let's just review that in the future, whenever we get to that point. USD chef, so what I was looking for was 21st, so around here. So yeah, I think I was essentially looking out for some sell-off positions to the downside, and then essentially the rally to the upside. So pretty much price didn't want to pull back, it continued to push lower, so that's fine. It then came into that territory of 0.915 and then completely blew off. So now that we've got that momentum that we're looking for, we can pretty much now start to look at some positions to the upside, which I'm keen to get involved with. So pretty much it's this situation here where we're going to be waiting for price to pull back, and then pretty much very simple, waiting for a pullback, and then hopefully we can see a turnaround in the market and then push up higher. But if we start to break below 91, as you know, we're going to be looking at some sells. So but obviously if we stay above this zone, we're going to be targeting 94 potentially, and that's very optimistic, but basically 93.5 into potentially 94. So we'll see what we can potentially come from this. And yeah, so finally for this week we've got USDCAD. So in my notes, so what I'm looking out for is pretty much an upside move still, and it's going to be very 50-50 here, because we can see this rocketing momentum to the downside. So I'm not entirely confident with this, but what we spoke about last week was this possibility of a pullback, price moving lower and then pushing up higher. So it pretty much broke into 1.28, so that's great. Now I think that this is where the next bias is going to come from, and that is if we get to this point here are we going to see that sell-off? So we can see that sell-off momentum kicking in already. My only concern is, has it completely finished, or is there going to be one more push to the upside? So yeah, so we could anticipate that. So what I'll be looking out for is pretty much a possible reversal. I mean, it doesn't have to happen, but ultimately we're going to be waiting for price to do something like this. Or what will happen is we'll get price to continue pushing lower, and then in that case we could wait for like a retest scenario and do something like so. So with this, we could pretty much look at buying opportunities here, and if we really wanted to. But then if that fails and we don't get a buying opportunity, we can look at some sales if this starts to break off into 126, 126.5, and then wait for that retest. That's all we have to do, really. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some bullish pressure kicking in to take out these, to take out 1.29 and this high, even into 129.5. Again, this is all kind of predictive levels, but it's just what I'm thinking for now. So that's pretty much all for this week. I know it's been a lot of crazy moves this week with the war. I know this is a very deep, important week as well, just for the world and everything. But yeah, hopefully you guys are staying safe, and our prayers are to Ukraine. So without further ado, guys, thank you very much for your time, and if you did get some value from this video, leave a like, make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you all next week in our next video.